Hello and welcome to TV Talks, the show where I take a look about the good and the bad of what television has to offer. Today, it's time for the Weird Al Show! Yeah, I think any Weird Al fan has looked at this and just went, oh yeah, that thing that Al kind of regrets. Let me explain. See, in the late 90s, there was this big push to get educational content on TV. Meanwhile, ever since the mid-80s, Al has always wanted his own show. Not necessarily for kids, but, kids would be more inclined to watch this kind of stuff. So when this new push from CBS came out that they wanted new content, Al saw his chance. So he got a bunch of buddies together, and they pitched The Weird Al Show. CBS rejected it, saying, we're actually only looking for educational content right now. So Al, in a panicked move, said, this is an educational show. And Al sealed his fate for the next year. What followed was Al trying to do one thing and the networks breathing down his neck, forcing him to do another. Al getting stifled, having to deal with contradictory and controversial network notes. He was miserable. And according to his commentaries on the Weird Al Show DVD box set, they were filming upwards of 2 episodes per night. All of the cast members, as stoked as they were to be working with Al and with a top-notch team of writers and guest stars, they were tired and burnt out. Not only that, but the show was ridiculously expensive. With all of the sketches it did and the special effects and the settings and the costumes, and especially the guest stars, the show was not bringing in enough because CBS was not very well viewed. The Weird Al Show was the highest rated show on that network at the time. In the Saturday morning department, that is. But that's not saying much. That Saturday morning program was doing terribly in the ratings. It was getting trounced by everything. So the show was canceled because of these production difficulties, and in fact, the entire block was canceled because it was just doing abysmally in ratings. Al has gone on to say that he doesn't regret the show, and he still likes it, but he more feels bad about it because it wasn't the show he wanted. It wasn't what he wanted the Weird Al Show to be and to become. He had other plans and different things he wanted to try, but a lot of the network was just so oversensitive that he couldn't get away with anything he wanted. Like not having educational content for one. So Al may not look upon this show very fondly, but a lot of his fans do. Some say it's genuinely hilarious, one of the best things Al has done. Others say it's good, and it's definitely Al making the best out of a bad situation, because no matter which way you slice it, it was definitely a bad situation. I definitely say it's the latter. It's definitely good. It could have been more, though, because, of course, we all know the network was way too oversensitive with this show. But with what we got, it's still really funny. And there's also some stuff in here that I can't believe the censors allowed. More on that later. What is this show about? It's about Al, and he has a show. That's pretty much it. In Universe, Al is a guy who has a show, and he lives in a cave with his best friend Harvey the Wonder Hamster. He has some friends, like his cousin Corky, who's all about fashion, and pretty much is just a typical Valley Girl stereotype. There's Val Brentwood, Gal Spy. The name kind of gives it away. Madame Judy, a psychic, the Hooded Avenger, the superhero, and a couple other recurring side characters like his next-door neighbor that always ends up getting roped into watching terrible home movies, or Bobby the Inquisitive Boy, a little boy who just shows up to ask the most pointless, stupid questions imaginable. And each episode is about Al doing something stupid. That's actually what it's about. Al does something stupid and then he has to learn a lesson about why he was stupid. That's pretty much the show. And of course the lessons are terrible. They're absolute garbage. They're the most superficial, bland, pointless, obvious lessons you could ever think of, like, don't make promises you can't keep, be a good friend, tell the truth, don't hang out with bad influences, and that's as deep as they go. But what makes it good here and not in something like 3-2-1 Penguins is this wasn't supposed to be an educational show. Al didn't want it to be one. So he made the lessons essentially jokes. Well, yes, they are technically taught straight. They're not really the focus. In fact, they kind of mock the lessons a lot, like the characters saying how obvious they are, or that they kind of already knew that, or kind of sweeping them under the rug, or, my favorite, having the announcer actually literally have to scream at you what the moral is as a joke that the network thinks you're stupid, so they pretty much have to yell at you in order to get anything. I love that. And when Al isn't doing stupid stuff or doing his weird stuff that he always does, he watches TV. This is easily the best part of any episode. The sketches on here are some of Al's best work. There's stupid news headlines. There's an instructionalist guy who tries to teach you how to exercise and does a terrible job at it. There's random stock footage with new twists put on them, celebrity interviews, or my favorite and everyone else's, Fred Huggins and the Boolies. Basically this kind of Bob Ross, Sesame Street, Mr. Rogers kind of knockoff, where this creepy old mental patient sings about weird, stupid songs while his puppets are trying to backsass him and get out of it. A lot of this stuff, I can't believe they got past the censors. Like Baby Bully vomiting on screen, them referencing that Fred Huggins' medication is wearing off. Yeah, there was the one where they tried to commit suicide, but that never ended up getting produced. So instead, they just went with something tamer, like having Fred get sent to a mental institution. It's almost like Al kind of winnowed down his weirdness and overstretched out behavior in the actual show so he could get away with a lot of these TV segments. And yeah, they're technically filler, but you know what? They're the best part of the show, so shut up. And you wouldn't believe that all these people are tired. They've put in a lot of energy. They're clearly loving every second of this. They're having the time of their lives here. And this show definitely did look like a fun time to be on. Especially my favorite episode, Promises, Promises, where Weird Al says that he's going to book John Tesh on the show, and then he has to make a whole bunch of money so that he can actually book him. And yeah, at the end, John Tesh actually does come in, but Al doesn't recognize him. See, this show also had a lot of guest stars. Sort of. They're kind of smaller ones like Hanson or Bare Naked Ladies. Al says he actually still has old binders where he wrote things down like, should we get U2 or Aerosmith to be on the show? And then they ended up getting Hanson. Which, yeah, even though they're not the biggest, at least they're still network draws, right? And at least it's still kind of cool to have other bands and stuff on. They're not really my favorite segments, but they're still pretty fun. Even so, this probably would have helped with the ratings had the network actually promoted it, because apparently the Weird Al show didn't get any commercials. It's like the network always wanted it to fail, which, actually, I think is kind of true, honestly. Sad. So yeah, with great writing, great casting, and great effects, great everything, except for a great production history, and I guess lessons, but that's, I guess, part of the joke, I give this the Archibald Seal of Approval. The show is available on Hulu now, and also it is on DVD, although the DVD is admittedly becoming pretty expensive. But I recommend it. This show isn't really for everyone, and those who want a true die-hard Weird Al show, you might be disappointed because of the network meddling. And yes, it is more of a Weird Al show than Milo Murphy's Law, because Milo Murphy's Law is not actually a Weird Al show, it just happens to star Weird Al. But this looks like it's the closest we're ever going to get to a Weird Al show. And my opinion is it's definitely good, but I still want to see what it could have been. Alright folks, next up is The Simpsons. So, here we go. Back to the old grind.
Good night, everybody.